Thanks everybody for joining us for part 2 of the Orlando Sentinel's interviews with the candidates to fill the vacancy in Orlando City Council District 5 seat. Because there are 7 candidates, we have split them into 2 groups. And we are going to do our best to ensure that everybody gets the same questions. With us today are Ericka Dunlap, who owns a public relations and branding consulting firm, Lawanna Gelzer, a longtime community activist who operates as a fiscal management consultant for community nonprofits, and Travaris McCurdy, who is the small business manager for the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority and a former state representative. Takesha Ellison, who operates a business coaching loan consulting firm, was not able to join us today, but she is the 7th candidate in this race. And the other 3 can be seen in a video that will be also posted online. And so what I'd like to do is go ahead and get started with our first question. And that is kind of just the nature of this race. The person who is elected to this seat has a very uncertain future. The term could end in a few months or nearly 2 years, depending on the outcome of the situation that has the current or the recent councilwoman out of her seat. If you win this election, what will you do in the time that you have in office to ensure that you effectively represent the citizens, residents of District 5? And let's start with Ms. Dunlap.
Good afternoon. As a lifelong resident and a lifelong District 5 advocate, I am excited about the potential and the promise of this area district-wide, extending from downtown westward to Metro West, and of course, also including the Mercy Drive area. I believe that District 5 is in need of a visionary, competent leadership that is willing to be supportive of our neighborhood associations and the various businesses and entrepreneurs, as well as all of the residents throughout the district. And so what I plan to do as commissioner is to ensure that the residents' voices are heard, to be as responsive as possible to their concerns, and ensure that myself and my team are able to effectively make sure that people are feeling that they are a part of this community, that they are included in the decision-making process that affects their lives and affects their livelihoods within District 5. And so my goal is to not only attend to the needs of the community, but connect the community to opportunity. And the way I plan to do that is to utilize the various business relationships that I have garnered over the past 25 years as former Miss Florida and Miss America, and extend those to the community in order to create that type of proper infrastructure for community growth.
Thank you so much. Ms. Gelzer, same question.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here before you today. It's always an honor to share thoughts and hear ideas. I'm unique in that I believe that work continues, whether it's 2 months or 2 years. Lawanna Gelzer has been doing the work in the community for 40 plus years because she believes in advocacy and giving a voice to the voiceless. I will continue to work with different organizations to bring additional funding to the community to close that equity gap. I believe that at this particular time, in this juncture, we've heard a lot of things, but I'm a person about research and finding where we can make a difference in our community. We have an infrastructure problems. Unfortunately, we have a climate and environmental issues in District 5. We are definitely dealing with livable wages and attainable housing. So looking at the relationships I've built over the years with other organizations and the federal government, especially to do and close that equity gap, I think the most important thing is finding additional resources, finding additional funding opportunities, but more so having those that we've spent the dollars on be accountable. So I'm always about, with my finance background, a forensic audit, looking what here in the community. I've been in the community for 40 years. I hear them, and it's all about closing that gap to make sure they feel like they are a part of the city of Orlando and not just the outsiders or the voiceless. Thank you.
And thank you. And Mr. McCurdy.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you all for hosting us this afternoon. What I plan to bring is to continue the service that I have been bringing to the residents of District 5. I am a resident of District 5 first and foremost. And as a candidate in this race, obviously my experience is something that I have to lend to the residents of District 5. When you talk about issues that we face, especially coming from the current climate in Tallahassee, it's very important that we have someone who not only has an understanding of this process, but is ready and able on day one to respond accordingly, especially with things that we can do here on the local level. I'm happy about my service in the legislature to have fought to protect home rule and now have the opportunity to take advantage of that at City Hall will be absolutely imperative to the residents of District 5. We'll prioritize affordable housing, public safety, infrastructure, and jobs. And when you talk about jobs, my background managing small business, as you mentioned earlier, is just another advantage that I have when you talk about DEI possibly being stricken away. And we have to be innovative at City Hall to see what we can do to make sure that economic development is top of mind for residents here in District 5.
I have a question regarding the police department. So the police department is one of the largest recipients of the budget of City of Orlando. Tell me, how would you rate the police department's policing in District 5? What do you think they need to improve on, and what do you think they're doing right? We'll start with you, Mr. McCurdy.
What do I think they need to improve on? I believe we can absolutely improve on transparency. When you hear residents in our community, for instance, body cameras, another issue that I worked on in Tallahassee. There are cases and instances that we hear about in the media where situations happen in our communities, and the proof is always it's a lot of times left on the victim to prove. But we have these body cameras and they're not always being worn properly. So proper enforcement is something that we can absolutely work on. What is something that I think they're doing right that it can, and we're always looking for opportunities to improve. But I believe that community policing and just building community relationships between police and law enforcement and the community is something that they are taking a much more a stronger look at right now. I recently participated in the Teens vs. Cops basketball game where I served as a referee on a Friday night. And I think these types of events, this type of interaction is going to be very important because it not only takes law enforcement, but it's going to take community. And we all have to take a collective effort and take that collective duty and obligation if we really want to see that needle move towards a more prosperous, a more safe and reliable law enforcement for all.
Thanks for that answer. Ms. Gelzer?
Well, I believe in community policing. I believe we can improve policing in the Orlando area. However, Lawanna is very concerned that in zip code 32805, which is Compass District 5, we see over policing. So I have served on so many boards, gave so many ideas. I would like to see some implementation. And I start by saying that our chief of police, Chief Smith, is not elected. He's appointed by the City of Orlando Council and the mayor. But the one thing I really want to focus on when it comes to Orlando OPD is not just transparency, not the body cams, because the body cams are only on the traffic cops. I need it on the detectives and everybody else that are doing things. And we need to have the body cams released immediately within 24 to 48 hours, because an officer has 48 hours to put their comments and write their reports, but the community has it right then and there. But I'm gonna go back to the thing that I feel like if I could see improvement in the use of force metrics, the City of Orlando has one of the worst in the country. It's only 4 levels, and it used to be 6, and they removed 1 through 2, and at level 3, You could use a chemical agent. I feel like we need to go had and have a universal use of force metrics. And I believe we can start there on the OPD side, and the community will call you when they need you, because they do call. But let's start with that first.
Thank you for that answer. Ms. Dunlap?
I believe that we could be much more of a community that is stronger together if we implement training strategies for our police, and training strategies that will allow for them to restore a relationship and restore trust throughout the communities. But also, I want to speak to what I believe the police need to be doing better as it relates to the downtown area. As someone who has been a performer for many years, I think it's important that we have a vibrant nightlife in downtown Orlando and that the businesses are viable. And one of the concerns that business owners have mentioned to me is that the AMS, the after midnight sale permit, has been ineffective, and police are not showing up to their locations on time. Police are not, they're not being there and being responsive to the needs of the nightclubs and the business owners in the downtown stretch. And so that's one concern that we need to attack immediately, and ensuring that business owners are not wasting their money on the police not being responsive to their needs, especially when they're paying an exorbitant amount on evenings where they perhaps are not having the types of people coming into their venue. Additionally, when it comes to community policing, I think it's very important that we have more community police officers establishing relationship with the young people, but also with the residents as a whole, and that they're actually coming to the residents' needs when they call them and not 2 hours later. So that's one of the things that I would be working on, ensuring that we have the right communication with police and communities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for those answers. I wanted to jump over to the homeless issue, if I could, actually. Got a couple of questions on that, but the first thing I wanted to ask is, do you all agree, and each of you in turn, obviously, do you agree with the city's recent actions regarding the homeless sleeping outdoors? And what sort of, that specific, but then what more in general should the city be doing about homelessness? And with that, I will start with Mr. McCurdy.
Well, I do not agree. And I publicly said that I don't agree that we should be criminalizing homelessness, because that is essentially what that is. And there are various reasons why individuals become homeless. I've recently said or given examples of, single mothers or single parents in general, whether you're a male or a female, who have issues with rent. And we have issues with slumlords. And that is a contributing factor to why we see such an increase in the population of our homeless. But it's much further than City Hall. Homelessness is not exclusive to District 5. It's not exclusive to the city of Orlando, Orange County, the state of Florida. It's a nationwide issue. And when we have a legislative body that is not compassionate and does not sympathize with the least of these and individuals who are struggling day to day, that is very alarming. So it's very important that we have local elected officials who are able to have dialogue and willing to lobby our legislative delegation. A lot of this stems from Tallahassee, and these are unfunded mandates. And we know just historically, when you're banning the houseless, people who without homes from sleeping in public places, District 5 is the sleeping ground. District 5 is ground zero for these individuals. So there must be an effort, but it's going to take all of the commissioners, along with the mayor, along with the residents, working alongside of us to coming to a solution for this very pressing problem.
Thank you for that answer. Ms. Dunlap.
So the homelessness issue is one that is extremely pressing, of course, and I would have most likely voted against the recent ordinance. And I believe that it's important that we take a very compassionate approach to homelessness. It's multifaceted and very complex, in that we have to consider that there are mental health issues that we must attend to, and we have to ensure that people are not criminalized, but also that people are not just thrown by the wayside because of their situation. So we must take a compassionate approach to homelessness. And one of the ways I believe we can do that is to think inside of the box and to look at what we already have in place as far as our funding is concerned, and ensure that we are implementing that funding and implementing the programs and supporting the programs that are currently in place to ensure that we can provide for the homeless population, and making sure that people do not feel as though they are being left behind, and that they are also citizens of Orlando. And we want to make sure that, yes, we are the city beautiful, but beyond that, we need to be a city that is compassionate, and we care about the humans that live in our community, and not just treating them as though they are a problem that need to be pushed away to shelters.
Thank you. And Ms. Gelzer, the same question for you.
Well, I currently, about 2 years ago, moved back to Paramore, but my family has been here since 1948. I am very concerned about the houseless. I'm concerned about the law, but I'm concerned about the community of Paramore bearing the grunt, 95% of the homeless, houseless population. And I am just devastated that we have criminalized someone who has an economic situation or a mental health situation. It saddens me that we forget that we're human beings. There have been many programs, but the one program I can say about Paramore that we fought diligently for was Paramore is only 1.4 square miles, 1.4 square miles. And we fought so hard to have a moratorium that no more homeless shelters, social services, nothing could be in the community to expand. But that was rescinded. And so now we see everybody living downtown. No one wants it in their community. And we can keep throwing money towards that, but we're not rectifying the problem. And the problem is economics. The problem is mental health. The problem is some people don't want to be in home, but we can have some type of attainable housing for those who need it. And we cannot continue to criminalize those who we need to serve the most, the ones who are in need. So I say go back to those moratoriums and make sure we treat everybody with the dignity they deserve.
I would actually like to follow up on that. You touched on the very, very closely related issue of attainable, affordable housing. And in District 5 in particular, the housing costs continue to go up. The housing stock continues to go down. What more in District 5 should the city be doing to expand access to housing for the people who are already here? And let's start with Ms. Gelzer.
Well, as a homeowner in Paramore and a person who have watched from an accounting perspective, accountability, you can't keep throwing money away and we don't check. Currently, everyone is complaining with all the affordable housing that has been built, the apartments, that there's a clause in their lease and their rent is going up every 3 to 6 months. Some started off at $800, they're at $1,500 a month, and everyone's saying you just need to pay it. But these are the dollars that we have spent to make sure the people in our community can benefit from attainable housing. I just can say this. I've been in Paramore since 1971. I watched when the first arena came that used to be the old fairgrounds. It was blown up. We lost 150 homes, not apartments, 150 homes, and we've never gotten them back. We have to have a balance of housing, not just apartments. A housing brings wealth to a family. That home ownership. And so I'm very concerned that it costs $106,000 a year to live in most communities in Orlando. So right now, something is not in balance. And so the money has come, even though we can say we need more, but we need to go back and check for those who are in need to make sure they're not being removed from their house, because it's happening every day. People are getting notices to be removed from houses that they moved in, that they can afford, but because of the clause in a lease, they're being asked to move.
Okay, that I would like to go to Ms. Dunlap with the same question.
So I believe the city of Orlando should be much more concerned with how we expand our housing initiatives. As the chairperson for the Orlando Neighborhood Improvement Corporation, which is an affordable housing organization that began in 1985. I believe that it's important that we continue to provide housing stability for those families who are having the issues of rental increases. And one of the ways that the city can implement is to ensure that all of our new development has adequate affordable housing and community investment, community reinvestment. And so, for example, the Magic Complex that is soon to be constructed, their latest project and their proposal was that some of the housing, the luxury housing that they will have on that property will only have 10 units of affordable housing. And that's just not enough. We need to have higher percentages and full amounts of all of the participation for contractors and workforce housing that can help to ensure that the right housing is being built throughout the area. And this is not just for downtown, but this is throughout the district and throughout the city. I believe that we need to ensure that we are expanding our housing inventory and making sure that all new development absolutely has the max capacity for affordable units.
All right, Mr. McCurdy.
Well, I'll start here. Because of my experience as a state representative, it's very concerning to me what we're allowing Tallahassee to do with the sweeping of the Sadowski Housing Fund and how that trickles down to local government and local municipalities and the burden that it puts on us taxpayers, and how it limits local government from what we can do as far as projects when you talk about addressing affordable housing issues. We can look to expand the choice vouchers. Look at criteria. I know there are issues with some of our returning citizens. That's a lost population when you talk about affordable housing, attainable housing, livable housing. It's very important that we allow Orlando residents to be able to afford to live in Orlando. That's very important. But I applaud the city of Orlando for recently investing $58 million of its ARPA funds in affordable housing. And as a former state lawmaker, advocating from City Hall to encourage our legislative delegation again to use the Sadowski housing funds for its original intent. It's the same argument that we use that we hear used for the TDT dollars. Use the Sadowski housing funds for its original intent, and that is something that I'm ready to do day one, because of the relationships that I already have established with state lawmakers in Tallahassee.
So I'd like to ask a question about the city's budget. So the budget is a reflection of the city's priorities. And I'm wondering if each of you think that the budget is on track, or whether you would want to fund different things or move things around. We'll start with Ms. Gelzer.
Well, last year, I think it was about $1.4 billion. And so over half, about 60% goes to the fire department and the Orlando Police Department. So we're left with not as much as we think. However, because I'm a homeowner in the Orlando area, I am concerned about my infrastructure. And I have looked at the budget, and one year it was only $2 million allocated to infrastructure. That is just not enough. I think that, but I am a business owner, and I happen to reside in the CRA, the downtown development, and a HUD zone. And I have seen additional funds come to those organizations, but I've not seen it benefit the west side of Orlando, like Paramore out to the Camping World Stadium. So the budget, I feel like right now our focus is infrastructure. It's the most important thing. We can expand on our youth programs. We can expand on our senior programs. But the most important thing right now, a lot of people are very concerned, especially with a letter we just received about an increase in our stormwater tax. I was there when they did that 17.5% increase in property taxes. I just would like to see a fair share of the funding go to District 5 and District 6, but to put District 5 first. We've been waiting a long time for infrastructure. So if we could allocate more money there, that's the most important thing for me right now.
Thank you. Ms. Dunlap.
So I believe that District 5 is probably one of the most important districts in the city, particularly because we have all of the major venues outside of the theme parks right here in District 5. And so with that, I think that we should be expanding our budget to infrastructure. We should be expanding our budget to ensure that there is more than enough public safety measures so that residents feel safe and are safe. But beyond that, I believe that there are metrics and ways in which we can resolve our budget issues by fully utilizing the budget and not just looking at just the basics of the city revenue in order to expand it. So I very much think that we can be fully utilizing our budget and making sure that District 5 has the most possible out of the city budget.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McCurdy.
Yes, well, I'm happy to have been the only person who has ever had to vote on passing a budget. In Tallahassee, I voted to pass the state's largest budget at the time, 2020 to 2022. I understand the approach, and that's why I believe having the ability to govern is so key and so important. Especially right now where we're going to go 50 plus days without any representation on the dais. So you want somebody that's ready and prepared on day one. And I believe that's what my experience it brings to this race. But I have not gone through the city's budget line item by line item. And I think it's very important to be as educated so we make the most informed decision. Now I'm the father of a 6-year-old daughter. If I give her $4, she'll think she's supposed to have 8. We always want more money, but not in the name of public safety. But we should look for ways of reallocating funding to support groups on the ground, nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations. Obviously, infrastructure is very important. But there are a number of issues and a number of funding initiative requests that we may have from our various districts. But we also have to work collectively in a collegial way with the rest of our colleagues at City Hall. So I'm willing to explore ways of looking for more funding for District 5. That's my main priority. Absolutely.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've been hearing a lot about lately is water quality and the contamination that we've been seeing. The OUC has repeatedly insisted that its water is safe and that it complies with all EPA guidelines. However, there are a lot of chemicals that are now suspected or proven to be harmful, many of which are not currently required to be tested for. Do you think that the utility or that the commission should put pressure on the utility to expand the number of substances that it tests for and going beyond the EPA requirements? And I'd like to start with Ms. Dunlap, please.
Absolutely. I believe that the city should utilize as many testing measures as possible to ensure that our water quality is safe. But beyond that, I think that it's important that we are, again, communicating with our state and federal legislators and ensuring that we do have a full capacity of use as it relates to all EPA standards when it comes to the city of Orlando. So I very much am in support of that. Additionally, I believe that we need to just be mindful as residents, mindful of what we are using and how we are communicating the message to residents. We see billboards often, and every once in a while we may see some type of mailer that comes to tell us, you know, don't use certain chemicals, don't flush certain chemicals, and don't put them in the water stream. And so it's important that we abide by that as much as possible, and that we're continually educating our residents on how to ensure water safety from our own perspective.
Thank you. Mr. McCurdy, same question.
Thank you. Well, what I think about is, as a resident, what would I like to see? And I believe a lot of times, a lot of the constituents in District 5, and just throughout the city in general, are accustomed to being talked to and not talked with. We have to talk with our constituents, right? And that's a part of the working alongside me that I'm asking individuals. And the reason I mention that is because I don't claim to come as an expert on every issue in every silo. And I think that the true character of a leader is someone who recognizes that. And I'm that person who recognizes we have to bring the expert to the table and get their input, along with community input, along with the business community's input, to see how do we proceed with this on this issue? What makes the best sense for the most people in District 5? So I'm one person that's willing to admit that I'm not an expert on every issue, but I'm absolutely keen on surrounding myself with the experts from various silos so that I can make an informed decision for the residents of District 5. And that's what I would want as a resident here in District 5.
Thank you so much. Ms. Gelzer.
Well, this is hard because I've been fighting this battle for a while, and I've been called everything in the book when I talked about in 2012 environmental issues. But what I decided to do was I didn't just rely on my government. I went and sought individuals and educated myself. That's why one of our grants from the EPA, and I'm a certified agent through the EPA through September 18, 2027. I'm able to get funds. I've worked with Region 4. I'm dealing with water quality. I'm dealing with air quality. I have brought the staff on. We got the equipment to test. But what we did was we got community scientists. We're bringing people from the community, realizing that they do care, and educating them on what is necessary. And so one of our grants is that. But I want to say this. What got me started was in Paramore, there's 434 contaminated lots, 2 Superfund sites. You guys know what a Superfund site with Orlando Sentinel. But we didn't know. But the city of Orlando was one of the responsible agents. And we have fought for a health disparity study. So what I'm saying when it comes to water quality, the aquifer is 67 feet down. You can tell me everything you want to, but when I get this information, I'm not happy. And when you built that Paramore coffin, it went down 65 feet. So you tell me if 2 feet is enough buffer. We should be concerned about our lakes and our water quality. And we should not just give up if someone tells us it's okay. It's not. Learn for the community and share the information. That's what I believe in. And that's what we've been getting funded to do.
Thank you so much. We have covered a lot of ground, and we are actually almost to the time that we told you that we would take up. I wanted to sneak in one more question, and then we can move to closing statements. But from each of you, over the past 2 years, how many city council meetings have you attended in person, and how many have you watched online? And let's start with Mr. McCurdy.
Well, great question. Over the past 2 years includes my time as being an aide in District 5. So I've attended well over 10 plus city council meetings. Keep in mind, again, I am a full-time professional. And that's the other thing. Maybe we need to adjust the times of the council meeting so more residents can come, right? But I have that lived experience, but I am familiar with the council meetings. Again, having served as an aide in District 5, I was right there present at many council meetings.
Ms. Gelzer?
I can't count. I don't know how many, and I'll be honest with you, because it's not always about the city council meetings. It's about the advisory board meetings that they have. And I attend those also, because the best way to get an understanding is what's going on is not when it reaches the city council, it's when they're talking about it and developing the issues. I attend so many, I don't want to count, but I want to say this. When Glenda Hood was the mayor of Orlando, and prior to, 4 city council meetings would be every quarter would be in the community at 6 o'clock. That has changed. I have seen public comments and the input of the community dwell down to zero. Our public comments are not recorded. They're not seen by the public. It's all kinds of things have changed to take the input of the community. So not just attending is important. Taking that information and sharing it is the most important thing. And when you see something that is not right, don't accept it. Find other ways, other revenue to make it happen. That's what I'm all about. And that's what I say, closing the equity gap is so important to our community. So I don't just attend. I speak up. I speak for the voiceless. I'm afraid sometimes people like saying, oh, she's hard to work with. I'm not. I'm very passionate and care about my community. But so just attending is not important. Action is important. And that's what Gelzer is all about.
Thank you so much. Ms. Dunlap.
Thank you. In the past 2 years specifically, I have attended several of the city council meetings, and more so, I have listened to the city council meetings, especially when it relates to the buildings and the properties that are within the framework of my work as the chairperson for ONIC. And so with that, attending those meetings is critical because we are there to not only present the concerns of the company, but also to listen to the concerns of residents as well. I am a homeowner in Clear Lake Cove neighborhood, and I have attended meetings in regards to certain activity and requests that have been made from the homeowners association that allow for the residents to be able to see improvements in our neighborhood, including our streets being paved, as well as some of the other issues that we've had as a community. So I've attended enough. Not as much as Ms. Gelzer, I'm sure, and certainly as a former aide, but I have certainly been.
Well, I want to thank you all. In just a minute, we're going to ask you to each make a short pitch as to why people should choose you among this very large field of candidates. But first, I wanted to let our readers know, we thank you as well for joining us. We do plan to make an endorsement in this race. It's going to be tough, but we also urge you to not just rely on us or any one source to make up your mind. Residents of District 5 have some great choices. So look into social media. Each candidate has a website. And there's plenty of resources for you to do your own research. And also, we'd like to remind everybody that early voting starts May 13th and election day is May 21st. If you are in this district, those are your opportunities, as well as mail balloting to participate. And if no candidate gets a clear majority, there will be a runoff, so we'll get another chance. So with that said, let's move to closing statements. And I'd like to start with Mr. McCurdy.
Thank you again for hosting us. I never got in this race to run against anyone. As you said, this will be a difficult choice. Everyone is very passionate about this community. What I think that sets me apart is District 5 needs a leader who can not only talk the talk, but can walk the walk. And I'm happy to have had the opportunity as your state representative to walk the halls in Tallahassee. And now I'm looking forward to walking the halls at 400 South Orange Avenue and being ready on day one. So I'm asking the residents of District 5 to walk alongside me, because I know when we walk together, there's nothing that we can't do. So I ask for their favorable support. I ask for their confidence in me to continue to do what I have done for the past 10, 15 years, not only as an elected member, as an aide in District 5, as an aide in the Florida legislature, as a leader in my community, as somebody who cares deeply and is passionate, who is aware and who is concerned. So thank you again. I hope everyone goes out and vote McCurdy.
All right, Ms. Gelzer.
Well, I'm not, how do I say, Lawanna is all about community advocacy and service. Public service is who I am. Whether I've been elected or not, it doesn't matter. I do the work. I do the work because it's important. I can say last year alone, we brought $5 million into District 5 and 6 outside of government. We was not the city of Orlando, I should say. It was federal funded and projects that we were able to do. I'm about closing that gap, providing services, because it's the work, it's who I am, it's my DNA. But I have to say the most important thing is when you see something and Lawanna sees something, or if someone calls on her, this is why you should vote for her. She looks for a solution. I'm not about talk. I'm about getting the job done. And that's the most important thing with the staff that I have. I know about jobs, having livable wage. Everybody that works for me start out at $15 or $18 an hour. I have 80 employees. I've been a business owner for 40 years. I know what it takes to service the community, because I've been doing the work whether I was in office or not. Because the most important thing is the continuation of service. And that's what separates me from everybody. So I'm going to just say this. Go vote for Gelzer, because she's going to make sure what we deserve to get in our district is the most important thing for you. But I care. My passion, my love is what I want you to see. I will never give that up for you. I will always fight for the voiceless, to give them a voice, to make sure they understand that this is a democracy and not a dictatorship, and that the public, the constituents, the voters will be my supervisor. And if I need to do, the supervisors are telling me what to do, I want to keep that job servicing. So vote for Gelzer on May 21st and see what we can do together.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dunlap.
Thank you again for hosting us. This has been very enlightening, and I am honored to be able to sit alongside some very passionate community leaders who are looking to improve the way that not only District 5, but the entire city of Orlando sees District 5 and also responds to the needs of the district. But beyond that, I believe that District 5 specifically needs and deserves visionary leadership, someone who is compassionate and competent, but also someone who is deeply rooted and deeply connected to this community. As a native of District 5, born and raised in this area, I traveled around the world and across the country, and I'm happy to say that I intentionally made my home in my childhood neighborhood of Clear Lake Cove. And so I am intimately connected to not only my neighbors, but also to the many people who instilled the values and instilled the skills in me to become the businesswoman that I am today, as well as the mother that I am. My daughter is 3 years old, and I'm happy to be raising her in this community, and she will also be a product of District 5. And so, of course, I want the very best for this community. And so I do hope that with the approval of the public, we will be able to find solutions to improve job skills, job placement for District 5 residents. Additionally, ensuring that seniors are protected from predatory experiences, as well having the type of support that they need to live out their golden years in their homes and in their community the way that they want to. I want to see the next generation of District 5, the youth of District 5, be empowered and excited about coming back here to live here once they go off and find a trade or find a job or find a college that suits them. And so my concern is to ensure that District 5 is a world-class location. Orlando is a world-class city, and I believe we need world-class leadership in order to get us there. So I do hope that you will vote for Ericka Dunlap May 21st, and I look forward to continuing to serve this community as I have for the past 30 years.
Thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We wish you all the best of luck, and we will see everybody at the poll.